I am having a wonderful day.
Bring my kids.
I am having a wonderful day. Thank you for having me on today. It
I'm so
is
happy to have you
beautiful out here. It's finally warm on a regular basis,
here.
and occasionally a little bit too hot.
Don't you ever say it's too hot. Especially in New Hampshire where you have so much cold. Bring the mic a little bit closer to you so I can hear you. There we go.
How's that?
That is way better. So you are running up here in the first district, and do you have any challengers as of yet?
So, as of yet, there's a gentleman named Gilly Town who ran in this district, in District 2, in the last election. And he dropped out before the primary, before the debates, from what I understand. Then there's a couple potentials that haven't filed yet, like Tim Baxter, who is a state rep, and he's a great state rep. There's Caroline Levitt, who is actually the little sister of one of my buddies that I played football with. And she worked under Kayleigh McEnany in the Trump administration. She's an absolute sweetheart. And then there's Matt Mowers,
Yeah.
who just had his baby boy like last night.
Oh,
So congratulations to Matt.
congratulations. That is awesome.
Yeah, first baby boy.
Oh.
And so he is most likely going to hop in as well. And I believe that's it for right now. I hear that there's a few more people hopping in, but I can't remember the names for the life of me. But I mean, we're not really running against each other. We're all running against Chris Pappas. And the truth of it is, I'm not really running against anybody. I'm running for my district. I'm probably the only one in this race that doesn't actually want to be in DC and doesn't want to live in the limelight in politics like that.
Right.
All I want to do is change how we do things.
Here,
Yeah.
especially, and what's coming back to your state.
Yeah, I want to protect my state. That's it. So that I can go back to shooting guns and drinking bourbon and smoking cigars and blowing stuff up. I want to go back to being able to live my life.
Right.
And unfortunately, because everyone that goes to DC plans on staying there,
Yeah.
and everyone in politics has either spent their entire lives prepping for a career in politics or they spent their entire lives in politics. And I'm like, the only way that you're going to get rid of career politicians is if we stop electing people who spend their entire lives
Agreed.
prepping for a
Or
career in
tradition.
politics. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
passed down.
yeah, where it's this guy's turn or it's that guy's turn. Like, no, every time we elect a career politician, guess what? We all get screwed repeatedly.
Yeah.
I'm like, because we don't elect normal people. My idea is go to DC, serve your time, and come home. Like, I'm a big fan of term limits. I want term limits. As a matter of fact, I don't want to wait for the federal government to do it. I want the state of New Hampshire to enact term limits on our representatives that go to DC, so that, hey, you know what? 12 years is the maximum. 2 terms in the Senate or 6 terms in the House. I don't care how you split it up. 12 years maximum for anybody in the legislature. I think that would be great. We have term limits for the president.
Yeah.
And everyone that says that, oh, well, you're sacrificing experience. After 12 years, you've pretty much accomplished all
Well,
you're
you
going to
should.
accomplish. Yeah, if you're doing your job
Right.
job is actually to work yourself out of a job. If you're actually serving your constituents.
But that's the problem.
If
you
you're
know.
effective. So you're either, after 12 years, you're ineffective, you've accomplished all that you're going to accomplish, or you've become a part of the problem.
Well, you know, that is exactly, they are part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They are so entrenched, and it becomes about money.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all multi-millionaires, but yet they don't even realize what the struggling everyday people have to deal with. And that's the reason why I'm running, because I cannot stand the corruption any longer. And it's literally affecting me and my children, my family. So we have got to get out there and make a difference and change things. So we have a problem in Massachusetts that I'm wondering if you have here. Do you have other rhinos going on your page and just completely attacking you or what you're doing?
Not really. I mean,
Exactly.
I get, so most often I get criticism for not being Trump enough. I'm like, I voted for him twice. I couldn't vote for him anymore because I'm not a leftist. We don't vote more than once in an election. I was like, but I did vote for him twice. And my only thing was, and I got, I guess somebody that recently followed me got angry that I told the gentleman that followed me that it was his party and not Donald Trump's. I was like, it's the voters' party.
Right.
It's the people's party. Donald Trump got elected because he understood that and he spoke directly to us. That is why we elected him. He directly passed the establishment in D.C. He ignored everyone, all the power brokers, and went directly to the people, and we elected him for it. It shouldn't be controversial to say it's your party and he's your guy because he knows that.
That is so
But
loud.
for some reason, it was, no, it's Donald Trump's party. He is the GOP now. And I was like, that's not a good thing that you're willing to give up your party. It's your party. Politicians come and go.
Right.
Even good politicians, they come and go. Donald Trump will be, 78, 79 if he were to run for re-election?
Yeah, I think he's, yeah.
Yeah. I think Donald Trump, right now, even if he were to run, like, if he runs, that's great.
He's the man.
Yeah, he's awesome. Like, if he runs, that's fantastic. I have no problem with that. I think he's powerful. He's more powerful right now as an activist. He can back America First candidates nationwide.
Yes.
He can put a serious amount of power behind replacing all the people in D.C. that don't actually listen to voters,
Right.
that have ignored us for decades. And I think he's more powerful in that vein without the media focusing on misconstruing his every word and trying to tear down his business and hunting him down, chasing him down the sidewalk. I bet you he's got a 4.240 right now, running away, having a friggin' sprint away from the media, the way they chase him down with microphones. If you look at him, the mainstream media doesn't even know what to do right now.
No.
They're like, oh my God, all of our ratings got replaced back in November. We have no idea what we're going to do now.
Yeah, and so that's the thing, is they were only focused on one person and not focused on what's going on
It's
in the community.
reactionary politics.
It is, and like when I look at what's going on in our own
Two
state,
problems: reactionary politics and fanboy politics.
Yeah.
I don't care whether it's a great guy or a horrible person. If you can't look at them as a flawed individual that you like when they do one thing and you dislike when they do another, universal agreement with anyone tells me that you're not critically thinking. I like 90% of what Trump did. That final 10% pretty much happened on Twitter. So I'm
like Twitter. So
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Twitter, but I'm like 90% is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't see why there's any controversy in that. But at the same time, this idea that I absolutely hate someone or I absolutely love someone, I don't live in absolutes because the world isn't black and white.
Right?
It's various shades of gray. So there could be a politician I disagree with like 90% of the time, and then there's 10% where I'm like, yeah, you got that one right.
See, we have in our state, so we have like some elected officials and then also some that are candidates running who seem to be a little upset that I'm out there and, you know, I have a bigger base or whatever. And they literally come onto my page and put their information or, you know, and I'm not running against any of them.
It's Machiavellian politics.
It's so stupid. Why aren't you going after one of them? Why isn't he just elected to his town? Why isn't he actually focusing on the problems in his town? Why is he coming on my page and trying to attack me? Another one, same thing.
Yeah.
You're running for Congress. Why aren't you focusing on your opponent? Why are you coming on my page and trying to attack me? And, you know, it's very degrading and disgusting. And this is not why people actually went out there and are going to support any of these people.
It's why conservatives lose. It's why we lose on a regular basis is, if you look at the left, they walk on the battlefield linked arm in arm. They take care of their stuff behind closed doors.
Right.
and then they walk out solid. I mean, up until recently, you didn't even see them publicly start going after each other. And that dynamic has pretty much come in with the populist movement on the left, the squad and the overt democratic Marxist socialists of Antifa, BLM, whatever, trying to take out the establishment, where all of a sudden, like, all right, I got inaugurated yesterday, today we're kicking down Nancy Pelosi's door. I'm like, wow, you know what? I disagree with AOC on, like, literally everything.
Yeah.
Except that level of energy. I'm like, dude, if we had that on the right, if we were willing to just sit there and be like, no, you're not getting rid of that.
What are they missing on our side? Us.
We attack each other.
And we don't have youth.
Yeah.
They don't want to allow us to come in. They are supposed to be this beautiful umbrella, but yet then they're like, well, if you don't do what we want, or you don't support everything that we want, then you're not part of the Republican Party. And you're just going, shut your face. No.
You're not the party. You're not the party.
We, the people, are the party, and the people are what is going to elect us.
These people forgot that they're supposed to be representatives. They became politicians. They forgot they're supposed to be representatives.
Right.
Your job is to serve. Serve, serve, serve. It's like being in the military. You go and you serve. It's not about you.
Exactly.
And it's that simple.
But they don't understand that, because obviously they've never done anything charitable or actually gone out and served their country.
And none of them are on the ground.
No.
You see them, and it's where I go with these uber intellectual arguments, and it happens on the right and on the left. That's why they're justifying Marxism, and you see us, like, over here with anarcho-libertarianism, where we're like, get rid of the government entirely and open the borders and isolationism. I was like, how do you have open borders and you're isolationist at the same time? And at the same time, you're like, no government. But, okay, fairy tale land.
Yeah.
Utopia is not possible. Whether it's... And peaceful chaos is not possible. As intellectual exercises, they're...
chaos.
Yeah. As intellectual exercises, they're a lot of fun. And some of them, if you follow the logic all the way through, and everyone were to follow the logic, it works. Guess what? We're human beings. We're flawed. Not everyone thinks the same. Not everyone's a libertarian. And not everyone's a Marxist utopian. So, both are wrong. Both are wrong. It actually lands in the middle. Most people agree on like 80% of stuff. And there's 10%
in our lives,
and then there's like another 10% that we argue about, and is based on language, because I know on the conservative side we like to say stuff like facts don't care about your feelings.
Yes.
Well, guess what? If I insult you and I belittle your intelligence, or I overtly make a fool out of you, it doesn't matter what facts I deliver after that. You're no longer listening. It's like calling your wife fat and expecting to sleep in your own bed tonight and not outside with the dog.
That is, yeah.
It is the most asinine thing. I would never sell a product to a client and be like, by the way, you're ugly and you're fat and you're useless, but hey, these shoes, you should buy these shoes.
They look great on
you. Yeah, they look great on you. Yes, honey, that dress looks fat on you, but the shoes are great. Your hair looks fantastic. Maybe change your face, but your hair.
Your hair is great.
Like, imagine that.
Yep, that is.
It's like this weird bro logic where it's like, I believe I should be able to say whatever. I can say whatever I want because we have freedom of speech. Doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean you should.
Mean you should.
You can insult somebody. Doesn't mean you should.
No, and
especially
if you do it, expect to get something back at you.
Yeah.
Like,
and expect not to get a vote from it. Expect not to change somebody's mind.
Yeah.
It's basic. People on the right
every action there is a reaction.
Yeah, and on the right I mean, let's be honest. We're a party full of businessmen and entrepreneurs and small business owners. We are very capitalistic. You would think basic marketing principles would apply, but yet for some reason they don't.
Because
and I'm like,
we have so many fakes within our our right in our roots.
You know what it
with
is?
everything. Though.
Everyone wants to feel like the intellectual. They want to feel like the person that nobody wants to be in a discussion where they come to an understanding when you could be in a discussion and feel superior by owning the person across from you.
And that's gross.
And unfortunately, that's how media works.
Yeah.
Like, talking points are not the language of real people.
No.
They're language of pundits and politicians and media brokers.
I hate talking points. And then, I get so many people that are like, anytime I say anything, it's like it's a Republican talking point. And I'm going, well, when have you ever heard anybody else say it?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they don't.
No. I land pretty bipartisan because I don't use talking points. I speak to real people like a real person because I expect to be spoken to like a real person.
Right.
And when we speak normally, we can actually get to the solution of a problem. Like over a single glass of bourbon and a cigar, we could solve the world's problem.
Loving your bourbon and
cigars. I love my bourbon cigars. Eagles Rare Bourbon is my absolute favorite. So I'm like, and I've been smoking the Drew Estate collection recently. But my whole thing is, we could sit down and we could have a discussion and we could get to the root of most problems.
But we can't these days. No. It's, cancel culture to the max.
Yeah.
It's CRT and everything. And why?
Oh, the racialization of everything.
So Massachusetts changed
I want it to be over.
Yeah, so do I. But they changed the name of it so it's not like critical race theory. It's like culture something. And I'm just like, it's the same thing. So...
You know what's even worse? This isn't new. Critical race theory isn't new. Critical theory started in the 60s. We're 2 generations removed from the birth of critical theory, critical race theory.
Yeah.
In its original form, what we're actually dealing with is one generation got taught critical race theory, or critical theory originally. Then that generation has grown up and is now combining the original text of critical race theory with white fragility, white privilege, and the 1619 Project. So I'm like, you're not even teaching the original ideology. It's kind of like, oh, we're not going to teach Marx, we're going to teach democratic socialism.
Yeah,
because that sounds sexy.
No,
it sounds like democratic socialism. You get to vote for equality. It sounds so sexy. It's like...
It's equity now, not equality.
Oh, I'm sorry. You get to vote for equity. What is equity? Well, I don't know. Growing up in a capitalist society, you're like, hey, yeah, equity sounds like an investment. That sounds like a good thing. We've been programmed, and now it's like, no, actually it means we're going to chop your legs off so you're the same height as the midget standing next to you. Exactly. I'm like, that's not a good thing.
No. And why are we, not enough people are standing up for it?
Andrew Wilkow uses that phrase on a regular basis. All trees in the forest are made equal by the axe. Yeah. It is so true. Like, the government doesn't give everyone everything to make everyone equal. It chops the legs out from under those who stand tall so that they're equal with everyone else. And if you want to question it or clap back against that, tell me how the left is doing it right now. Show me that they're not tearing down white people to build up minorities. Right now. I don't need you to tear down white people for me to be successful. I'm pretty damn successful on my own.
Thank you.
If I want to be an Olympic sprinter, bet your ass, give me a year, I will be an Olympic sprinter.
Seriously, like,
you want me? I want to be a professional boxer. Give me a year, I'll be a professional boxer.
Whatever you want to do, that's how we were raised. Yeah. Like, you could be whatever you want to be. Like, seriously, I remember when I was young, and we used to play. Like, we had our own radio show. Look at me now. I have my own radio show in 1 year.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to
You can pay $14 a month to have Audible and read unlimited books, factual history. We act like education is so expensive. Why doesn't Audible come out with an accreditation program?
They should.
Hey, Audible, if you're listening right now, come out with an accreditation program. I will scream that from the rooftops.
And if everybody's just tuning in, they are listening to the Rayla Campbell Show live on WSMN 1590 AM 95.3 FM, also live on the web at WSMN.live and on my Facebook page at Rayla Campbell from Massachusetts. I have Julian Acciard in studio with me. He is running for Congress in New Hampshire's 1st District. And also, if you have Alexa, play WSMN Nashua. And now we're national.
Hey, you know what? Also, go and check out Julian, the number 4, NH.com, and you can read my actual policy. Probably the only politician that'll actually put policy on my website,
And they can
because
donate
that's
to
like
it?
a whole thing, and there's a donation link on the main page.
Perfect.
You can find out about me. You can read my bio. You can see pictures of my family, my wife, and my kids.
And do you have a show, a podcast?
Yes, I have the Blue Collar Intellectual podcast. I haven't uploaded anything recently, but I'm gonna be doing it again because there's a lot of issues going on, specifically within the conservative movement. You have the Trump base fighting against the establishment.
Right.
Now you have Black Conservative Incorporated fighting against grassroots black activists and candidates with the whole Kimberly Clay Candace Owens
saw
thing.
that. And
You
I'm
also
like,
have,
why?
yeah, and it's really unfortunate that we always snipe at each other on a regular basis like this. Like, I want it to be over, and I want us all to be able to work together.
We should be.
Unfortunately, the problem is not all of us have the same goals.
Right.
Okay? There are people who get paid to talk about problems, and there are people who are trying to physically change the problem and the conversation to get to the root of the problem. I only care about the solution.
Right.
And there are times when that is going to rub people the wrong way, because guess what? The solution is not a political thing.
No.
It's solving the problem. And as a conservative, that doesn't mean coming up with a new government program for everything.
No.
It doesn't mean
With
shelling
way too
out tons
many.
of money.
Yeah.
It means making it easy for people to fix their own problems. Make it easy for... Yes, there is going to be times when government occasionally needs to do something. But for the most part, people can fix their own problems, and they need government to get the hell out of the way. I want to go to DC to stop the federal government from interfering and making worse issues in New Hampshire. I don't want our guys to be going to another war. It's not necessary. The fact that everyone was on board with Trump pulling people... Well, voters were on board with Trump pulling us out of Afghanistan, and I thought it was great. The establishment fought him on it because, you know, the military-industrial complex is a big money-making thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, and that's bipartisan. The establishment in D.C. is a bipartisan. It is a bipartisan
They've been there
establishment.
forever.
Oh yeah, they all make all their deals behind closed doors, and if you notice, they're the only ones that never have to worry about getting reelected.
Exactly. Don't have to
They're-
do a thing.
Yeah, I don't care about getting reelected. My job is to serve you. If I do a good job, you'll reelect me. If I do a bad job, you'll send me packing. That's perfectly fine. My goal is to actually come back home. The DC sucks.
Yeah.
Everything's expensive. I can't have my gun with me everywhere I go. It's I mean, and I have to wear a suit all the time.
No, you don't. You can pick your own style.
I might wear Timbs on the house floor.
Okay, so that would be awesome, and that's
Just
what
like
I'm
this,
talking
like
about.
jeans, dress shirt, tie,
You don't even do that.
Timbs.
Throw some Timbs on.
Normally, I don't like wearing a tie either.
Yeah.
It's unless I'm at a formal dinner. Ties are not necessary
That's
most
what
of
I'm
the time.
saying. We've got our own style. We don't have to follow in what
We're the
everybody-
party of rugged individuals.
Thank you.
Rugged individualism. We all get to dress differently. We get to act differently, speak
Yeah.
differently. That's why I don't like using talking points, because
No.
if you notice, we all sound like drones. And as a party of rugged individualism, we should not all sound exactly the same.
No, we're
We should have
individuals.
nuanced ideas, different solutions based on your locality. And when we go to DC, our primary goal is to represent the state we come from, kind of like the United Nations, if they had common sense. So I should be going to DC and representing New Hampshire,
Yes.
not going to DC to represent Texas or New York and California.
Right, and
And
be everywhere but here.
Yeah, everyone that we send to DC does exactly that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay with helping a candidate in Texas, but my job is not to represent Texas. So what may be good for Texas may hurt New Hampshire.
Yeah.
What may be good for New York and California may hurt New Hampshire. And I am not going to hurt my state to benefit another state.
Amen.
I'm sorry, that's not how this is supposed to work. The federal government is supposed to stay very, very minuscule. They have a defined set of things they're supposed to do, and the states are supposed to handle the rest. And you know what? Maybe if the Karens stopped screaming at the federal government for everything, we would be able to fix things. I mean,
but we also need the right representation locally, and we see in my state clearly we don't have that,
no.
And that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor, because it's like enough is enough, and which I don't have any Republicans challenging me, but the Democrat field is getting awfully packed, and it's pretty interesting because before I decided to run, nobody ever heard of somebody running for lieutenant governor of Massachusetts. Everybody actually thought that you were picked by whoever was governor. No,
most people I'm finding out don't understand how their state operates.
Right, and it's a lot of, and it's teaching, which I'm more than happy to do. I love teaching people, and I love, expanding the base and letting people know how this works, so people can actually get out there and run.
People ask, they're like, "Well, what's your experience in government?" I'm like, you can't blame me for anything that the government has done. That's my experience. I'm a very good citizen. I've read it all. Yeah. I've read all the intellectuals from the beginning of the founding ideologies. I've even read the antithetical ideologies. I've read the anti-federalist papers.
Oh my God.
I was like, I read Marx and Engels and Trotsky and Goebbels, and Gentile. I read them because they're antithetical to what our country stands for, and if you want to know how to beat it, you have to know.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So I've read it all. It's my tradition is to read the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and Declaration of Independence every year. It's a good tradition. I'm trying to instill that in my kids so that they always are able to hold their government accountable.
Yes.
You don't have to be a lawyer, and you don't have to be a professional politician to go into D.C. to represent your state. As a matter of fact, the founding fathers had advocated against that exact thing. They're like, professional politicians is kind of a bad thing when you care more about getting reelected than you do about actually solving the problem for your constituents and representing them.
Yeah. Because if you look at what they're
me.
doing, and the fact that so many students cannot read and cannot write.
Like, that's one of our worst talking points is, well, you could be successful if you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get an education, graduate high school, and get married. I was like, so first off, do you hold that same line with the Marxist education that's being taught right now? Are you, okay, I'll just get an education. Critical race theory is being taught in schools right now. Kids are graduating out of school with third grade reading levels.
Yeah.
The graduation rates go up, but they lower the standard for graduation. So it's like,
and they can't get a
and
job.
Government funding comes off of graduation stats, not necessarily off of your actual capabilities. So
remember
maybe
last year, nobody failed either. Everybody got pushed through.
Everybody got pushed through, despite half of the school year being gone before anyone even started doing remote learning and all of that.
And the number of children that don't have access to the internet to do remote learning, and
we're going to be so far behind the rest of the world, and we're causing mental health problems.
Major mental health
There's
problems.
a whole bunch of kids that don't even want to go back to school. They can't interact with their friends.
No.
Now they're forcing the mask mandate. Masks have been lifted damn near universally nationwide, but yet schools are the only places. Like, I understand wearing a mask in a hospital, but in schools we're now wearing masks.
Yeah.
We're going to keep doing this to our kids.
To the littlest ones where they need to breathe.
Yeah, and they're the ones who transmit it the least.
Yes.
They get it the least. They have the least repercussions from getting it when they do get it. So I'm like, wow, the best immune systems on the planet are the ones we're forcing to wear a mask.
And compromising them.
Yeah.
You're hurting them when you're covering their airways.
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to exhale the carbon dioxide.
We're not even using the mask properly. I look at, like, if you were actually being honest, the standard would be a paper mask or above, not anything that covers your damn face. I'm going to send my son to school with a Deadpool mask on. I'm going to get him a series of, like, inappropriate masks, like the clown from It. I'm going to get him Spawn. Daredevil,
That was
Deadpool. I'm just going to get them a whole bunch of inappropriate masks, have them dress up like a ninja one day. Like, you know what? If they're going to force you to wear a mask, you might as well have fun with it.
Yeah.
You want to be a Ninja Turtle today? Be a Ninja Turtle. You want to be Captain America? Be Captain America. You want to be Black Panther? Be Black Panther.
Oh.
You know what? Eventually,
But remember,
the school will call me, and I'll be like, you told him to wear a mask.
Yeah.
You have no say unless you enact
he
school
can be
uniforms.
whatever he wants to be,
Yeah.
according to...
You can identify. I identify as a Harrier jet. I identify as Will Smith, and I want 50% of his paycheck.
Thank you.
No kidding. Yeah, nobody's thought of that yet.
You know,
I want 50% of Dwayne Johnson's paycheck.
Oh my gosh! It's just like, oh, okay. I want to be you. So now give me.
Yeah.
Seriously, if that's how it is right now.
Well,
And we just have to scream loud enough, and maybe it'll happen.
I'm just it, and you know what? I don't want to pigeonhole the left into all being crazy, because the fact is they're not. Most people on the left are actually pretty reasonable, but they're drowned out by the loudest voices. It's just like on the right. The people who say the most insane things have the microphones, and the normal, average, everyday person that's reasonable is like, okay, so we just went there?
Well, let's talk about
look at Juneteenth, for example.
Oh, yeah. Did they ask you what day you want off?
Oh, man. Juneteenth is a Republican holiday. Newsflash to my conservative brothers and sisters out there. It commemorates the end of slavery in Galveston, Texas, at the end of the Civil War, when they finally got word that the war was over. Guess what? That's the greatest accomplishment of the Republican president, the Abraham Lincoln. Just like the Black National Anthem, it was named the Negro National Anthem in 1919 by the NAACP for Abraham Lincoln's birthday, to commemorate his successes for the black community. It is your history, your Republican history. When the left made it, by the way, Donald Trump wanted to make it a holiday too, is in his platinum plan. So he wanted to make it a national holiday. Now Biden's making a national holiday. The proper argument would be, don't make it Juneteenth Independence Day. It should have been Juneteenth Emancipation Day or Emancipation Day if you're going to change the name. But it should not be Independence Day. That was a sound argument. Juneteenth is a racist holiday and shouldn't exist. Well, first off, celebrating the end of slavery does not divide people by their race. It's not racist in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean that all white people need to get down and bow for wanting to make it a federal holiday. It commemorates actually one of the greatest successes of the Republican Party. And we shouldn't be letting the left co-opt our history just because
the Democrats were the ones that had all the slaves and were keeping them enslaved.
Yeah, I would do it every single year. I'd be like, hey, congratulations, this is the anniversary of the day that we stopped Democrats from enslaving people. I want to make sure that you own that. Yeah, make them own it like an anchor around their neck in the middle of the ocean. Like, it's their history. And I said this, somebody was like, well, I don't agree with tearing down Confederate statues. I was like, I don't either.
Exactly.
I was like, if people want to vote for taking them down and putting them in a museum, that's fine. But I don't believe that any statue should just be torn down and broken apart. That's wrong.
Especially when they've been there for hundreds of years.
Yeah, like if you want to vote for them to be put in a museum, that's fine.
But even then,
if you want to have
they've been there.
Yeah.
It's part of the foundation of this country.
Yeah. But I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, so you want to get rid of the Negro National Anthem, you say it shouldn't exist. You want to get rid of Juneteenth as a holiday, you say it shouldn't exist. You want to get rid of Black History Month because you say it shouldn't exist. You want to get rid of Dr. Martin Luther King Day and say it shouldn't exist. By the way, this is all Republican history. It is all Black Republican history. The greatest successes of the Black community in this country were all done by hardcore conservative Black people. And most of them Republicans. Mm-hmm. So, Frederick Douglass is like the most overt Republican. He was even more conservative than Abraham Lincoln. Right. We should be owning these things, not tearing them down. And how can you, out of one side of your mouth, say you want to stand for history and keep these Confederate statues up, but you also want to get rid of these holidays that are your history. They are your successes. They are our party's history. Know the history. That is the only way to beat the left at their games.
But
They want to push critical race theory. Well, guess what? If we all knew the history, they wouldn't be able to do it, because even an 8th grader would be like, excuse me, teach, you're an idiot. Like my son, I started reading some of the critical race theory to him. He's like, this sounds like bullshit.
Yeah.
And he's 9. Well, he'll be 10 in a couple weeks. But he's like, this sounds like bullshit.
Yeah.
And he said it. I was like, well, you can't swear. Just stop swearing, Mason. But still, he's like, this isn't right.
It's not right. And you know it's not
He
right.
sees the news and he's like, that's racist. Why did she say that? And I'm like, that's the world that we live in. The demand for racism exceeds the supply, so they got to make it out of thin air.
But then
they got to make us hate each other.
Mixed children. What are you doing?
Exactly. You're creating self-hate. You're creating self-hate. You don't need to tear people down to build other people up.
No.
We can actually all rise together. We've proven that throughout history, that we can rise together. Our greatest moments have been when we band together. But in order to get a Marxist proletariat revolution, you got to make everyone tribalistic and hate each other.
Yes.
You got to deconstruct society so you can build it all back up.
And the newest thing is now they're trying to come after our guns and say, look at all the gun violence that's happened. It's like, and these are all policies that you put in because you're the ones that went out and actually started defunding.
Yeah,
the police
systemic
and
racism
away.
is real. It is a real system.
The
And it is a Democrat system. It is localized to every major city in the country. It is a Democrat system. It is their policies that black people are complaining about.
Yeah.
We're complaining. We are all complaining about the government. On the right, we're complaining about the government. On the left, they're complaining about the government. They've convinced us to attack each other instead of hold them accountable. They convinced us that our complaints are actually against each other, when in reality, they're complaining about policies in their districts, and they're blaming the federal government for what's happening in their local districts.
Right.
We're blaming the federal government for interfering in our local districts. The arguments are the same. We're just standing on different sides of the fence because one person has blue or a D next to their name, and one person has red or or an R next to their name. I'm like,
brain fire.
yeah, not enough coffee this morning. But I'm like, it's political thuggery.
Yeah, it is.
It's Bloods and Crips, and the only people that actually consistently get hurt by it is all the bystanders.
Yeah.
So the citizens, we get hurt by the stupidity, the reactionary politics that happen in DC, where they're so set on hurting each other that they forget that they're using us as weapons to hurt each other.
Well, that's where the people really have got to say enough is enough, and you've got to go and you've got to look at what they're doing and the policies that they're putting in place. Because I wasn't allowed to get into one of our school meetings. It was a Zoom meeting. I don't know why they wouldn't allow me in. Yes, I homeschool my kids, but I want to know what the curriculum is. And so we had to send Freedom of Information Act to get it. And when I opened it up and it sits there and it's like, even though there's no mass, we're not going to require mass in school for middle and high school, but we will require it still for our elementary schools. And I'm going, what the heck is this? Absolutely not. And then
it's about control.
It is. And then there's supposed to be an evaluation of all of the teachers, and everything had zeros. So I said, does that mean you're failing and you've done a horrible job? Why are you, what is going on? What actually happened in the school system? What were the children able to learn or not learn? How much have you harmed the children? And then looking forward to the future, what is the curriculum? Give it to me. Why won't you let me see it?
I shouldn't have to ask more than once to get a copy of my child's curriculum.
No.
You shouldn't be hiding it from me. The fact that you're hiding it from me tells me that you're doing something shady.
Yes.
Hey, son, what are you hiding behind your back? Nothing. That tells me that you have something behind your back. What is it?
Yeah. It's like the
It
little
could
song
be,
my kid sings. It's
yeah.
hilarious.
It could be the simplest little disagreement where I'm like, maybe you shouldn't phrase the argument that way. Or it could be something like, oh wow, you're teaching my kid to hate other kids.
Yes.
Like, or you're teaching my kid
parading
that
them to walk across the stage and giving them awards
yeah,
if
or
they've had their shot.
or you're teaching my kid that the country is irredeemably equal.
Yes.
America is its people and the principles we aspire to uphold. It is not a flag. The flag represents America. It is not the government. The government is supposed to represent the people of America. Complaints against the government are not complaints against America. The government upholds the parties individually. Individuals in government uphold the nation's principles that we are founded upon and represent the people to varying degrees. This is why I say, when people ask me where I stand on the political spectrum, I say I'm a constitutional conservative. If you want to know about my policy, I land very libertarian on domestic policy and nationalist on foreign policy. I believe I should serve America first. That shouldn't just be a slogan.
Right.
That's the litmus test for representing
American
people in
first.
America. But there's nothing in the Constitution that allows me to legislate my brand of morality on somebody else. But I have a duty as a Christian conservative to engage in culture, to affect the culture of the country, to engage in my community, to solve problems without needing government, to engage and teach my child to be that next bastion of freedom and liberty in this country. So if I want to change the culture and I don't like where it's going, I have a duty to engage in it to fix it.
Yes.
That means not getting home, kicking up my feet and drinking a beer and going, leave me alone. That means I have a responsibility to be engaged. There's that other spot. You got to be knowledgeable and you got to be engaged.
Yeah, we got to stop being best friends with our kids and actually parents.
Yeah.
And I notice that a lot when you see, and the same thing with family.
It's exhausting parenting kids. My son does not watch a TV show that I haven't watched. Yeah. He doesn't play a video game that I haven't looked at. He doesn't get to go anywhere or talk to any kids and hang out at friends' houses unless I've met their parents, unless I've seen the kid.
Yeah.
Like, I would actually much rather kids come over my house first so I can get, like, oh, wow, this kid really likes destroying things. And now he likes torturing small animals. I don't want him being around my kid. Like, it's one of those sort of things where you have to be engaged. It is... I think the best description I've ever heard of parenting is our kids figure out every day new inventive ways to kill themselves. And our job as parents is to figure out how to stop that from happening.
Yes.
It's like a constant, you see the memes on YouTube of dads saving their kid before walking into traffic or falling off a slide in the park. They snatch him out of thin air and you're like, oh wow, that could have been really bad.
Yeah.
Like,
that has happened when you see your kid and you're like, oh my gosh, you go running and catch them and you're like, no.
Yeah.
This isn't jump, we don't do that.
I love being a dad. That's one of the reasons why I really don't want to spend any more time in DC than I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
Which is why I think I'm probably the best candidate to go there.
Because you'll come back home. Yeah,
because I actually want to live here when I'm all done. So I'm not going to go and screw over my own community when I actually have to live here.
Yes.
I like Derry. Derry is a great town.
Oh,
I like the people.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we got a great school district. I mean, I don't agree with everything that they do, obviously, but we got great teachers. We got great people. Everyone's nice as hell. You could meet anybody and they're like, hey, just come over for a barbecue. Let's That's
how it used to be.
Yeah, it's a really nice area to live. That's why I like New Hampshire. When you walk around and you meet people, everyone's nice.
I know.
And when they ask you how you doing,
everybody's smiling, and there are people all over the streets, and I just say good morning, and they say good morning and smile,
and when they ask you how you doing, people actually wait for a response. Yeah. They're like, oh wow, you actually want to know. Okay. Yeah. It's a beautiful. I love this state. I mean,
it's a beautiful state.
Like I graduated from Timberlane in Plastow, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And after spending almost a decade stationed out in California, I went to Iraq and back. I eventually moved back home in 2016. But when I moved back home, something was different. We are not the live free or die state we used to be. Nashua has like a 43% poverty rate. Manchester has like a 30% poverty rate. Despite that our schools are the best K through 12 schools in the country, despite that we have the lowest unemployment in the country, we also have one of the highest opioid epidemics in the country.
A big problem.
So like we were discussing before we went live, legalizing weed. Newsflash, didn't start the opioid epidemic. That actually came from overprescription of painkillers. And that came from the laziness. It came from a lot of different things that all sort of hit all at once.
Right.
But
that's true,
so
though.
you have
huge
that
drug problem, but you guys don't even have legalized marijuana.
We don't have casinos. We have one strip club that is honestly kind of disappointing. And we don't have legalized weed or anything like that, but yet we still have the drug problem that has been used to justify not having any of the other three. And I'm like, so obviously there's not a direct translation. There's not a direct correlation between those and the other. But we still have the one. We do have a serious mental health issue, though.
Yeah.
And mental health drives drug use.
And you have no hospitals. Like a real hospital.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have Elliott, and then we have...
but they're like medical centers, not like hospital. Like, we have, like, Mass General and Beth Israel, so, yeah.
I mean, I like our medical system, but then again, New England is such a small area. People are like, when I go and I travel around and I have speaking engagements and stuff, they're like, New Hampshire, is that a state?
You're so stupid.
You would not believe how often I get asked that. It is absolutely insane. It's like, New Hampshire's a state? I'm like, it's a suburb of Boston.
It's a north suburb.
Yeah. They're like, oh, that Tom Brady. I'm like, yeah, we're like the state directly above them. And we believe in freedom and liberty, and we don't like taxes, and we like guns, and
that's why everybody's like, so you're from Boston?
Well, you know what? The fact is, we're actually the most libertarian state in the country.
I love it up here. I really do.
We really are the most libertarian, and the libertarians up here are hardcore. I love them. Like, hey, let people live however the hell they want to live, and like, well, the non-anarcho libertarians, they're like, let people live however the hell they want to live and restrict government to literally just what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, enumerated powers. Keep it real simple. And I'm like, well, I can't really disagree with that, because, yeah, everything that the government sort of puts its hands in, it kind of makes worse.
Yeah.
And that's largely due to the fact that we elect the wrong people.
Oh, do we ever? And we see it, and people know, but the thing is the people that were getting elected are also in bed with, they sold their souls to the devil. So it's all about money. And once they start flowing that money in, they will do whatever it takes. And that's where the voter fraud we've seen come in.
Voter fraud? I mean, so New Hampshire, and I've been saying this, we have the best voter integrity bill, the best audit bill in the country. It was passed unanimously, which, to my recollection, the entire state government passed the same bill. I bet that would make it about the most nonpartisan bill in the nation's history. And yet it's been politicized recently. This is about voters being able to have confidence in their elections.
Exactly.
I've been on the ground with New Hampshire Voter Integrity Project from day one. There were serious issues, and we should have a statewide audit to make sure that those issues are not statewide. It's really that simple. I keep getting asked, well, what proof do you have that it happened statewide? I go, that's not how an investigation works. A cop doesn't walk up to you and be like, I have proof that you did this, therefore I'm going to look at everything else. And like, no, I have probable cause to investigate you.
Right.
We have probable cause to investigate to make sure that the rest of the state is not messed up too. And if it's not, then that's great. It's an isolated issue. That means it should be a relatively simple fix. If it's a larger issue statewide, then we need to fix it, and we need to fix it immediately, because confidence in elections should not be a partisan issue.
Right.
And it wasn't when the bill was passed, but it's been made into a partisan issue recently. And it's always because politicians grifting off of people's pain.
Yes. Oh, you know what I was called? It's funny you say grifting. Somebody called me a grifter last week.
I got called a white supremacist last week.
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a Russian spy.
Yeah, some woman was like, "Oh, are you a white supremacist?" Because I was wearing my 1776 Foundation shirt. She's like, "Is that about the 1619 Project?" I was like, "Actually, no. This one's a veterans organization. We kind of like stop each other from committing suicide and stuff."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, it sounds like you're a white supremacist." So I was like,
Gosh.
or no, she's like, "It sounds like a white supremacist organization." I was like, "Why? Are you looking for a membership so you and your buddies can put on your hoods and your sheets and run around again?"
Oh man, it's just like boom.
Yeah.
She says it right to your face.
Yeah, and she had nothing to say after that.
Yeah.
I was like, huh, yeah. Like, you know what? If you want to play games and you want to start clowning, I can clown all day.
My gosh.
I'm really, really good at it. I can
love
crack
clowning.
jokes.
And that's what makes us so unique, and why we're so strong out there and really fighting for what we believe.
Yeah.
Look at that, hour 1 down. So you have been listening to the Rayla Campbell Show live on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM, and also live on the web at WSMN.live and streaming on my Facebook page at Rayla Campbell for Massachusetts. We will be back at the top of the hour after a news break for hour 2, live in studio with Julian Acciard. Stay tuned.